Welcome to Seeking Wisdom, the podcast that reminds you that every hill in life can be climbed with God. I'm your host, Steve Lombardo, founder of One More Hill Life Coaching. Here we talk about faith, mindset, and the real battles we face on the journey. Because God didn't call us to stay stuck. He called us to rise, to grow, and to take one more step to live this life. Today, we're diving into something every one of us struggles with in life, and the word is consistency. We'll talk about why it's hard, what gets in our way, and how we can build it through faith and discipline. So, as we get to talk about this, we're going to talk about the struggle we all face. Have you ever felt like you were flowing really well in life, moving forward, making progress, and then suddenly it just stops? Like consistency lasted for just a moment, and then that life hit. I've lived that. And honestly, not gonna lie, I still struggle with that from day to day. It reminds me, as I tell my kids sometimes, right? Doing and knowing are two different things, right? You can know something, but to do it is another thing. And inconsistency shows up when I know something in my mind, right? But my actions don't follow through. So that's the inconsistency. And then the one that really hits me is the guilt and the condemnation that tries to step itself in and it pulls me even further off track. So today, as I was, praying about this and how I was going to start my first podcast, I want to share a few things that have personally kept me from being consistent in my habits, my mindset, and even my walk with God. So, what hurts our consistency? Holding a vision, right? Here's the action, holding a vision, but not making time for it. So we can see where we want to go in life, right? Like it may be, oh, I want to start that new business. Oh, I want to start a new health, fitness goal for my life. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father, mother, whatever it may be, right? We have a vision and we kind of see where we want to go. But then life gets really busy, right? Work, having to deal with daily life, right, in itself is a marathon. You get pulled in at work, relationships come and pull at you in every situation and directions. Um, you know, let's be honest, hobbies can be a distraction, right? Like I have to be careful with running because if I'm not careful enough, I might sign up for too many races. And I'm like, whoa, signed up for too many races and kind of getting pulled off my vision here. And sometimes, here's the big one for me. I just don't say no when I need to, right? Not being able to put that guardrail up and say, hey, I can't do that because, if I take that action, it is going to pull me away from where I truly need to be in my life with that vision. And guess what? We've all been there and we're all going to kind of fall prey to that every once in a while in our lives. So number two, starting strong, um, but with unrealistic expectations, right? In that vision, are we setting unrealistic expectations for us to exceed, right? It would be like saying, um, you know, what's an example I could use? I want to save $20,000 in 2 months, but I only make $2,000 in a month, right? Like that's an unrealistic expectation you're setting on yourself. Or, I want to be a better father, right? And saying I want to be a better father in the next 2 weeks. Like I'm not saying not to set a goal for that, but are you setting unrealistic expectations on yourself? Because I believe the thing that I've struggled with the unrealistic expectations is I want to see progress, right? I want to see the numbers. I want to see some margin where I'm making progress, and we want that evidence that we're doing good, right? Like let's not lie. We all face that, but when we don't, here's one thing that God's taught me: when we actually don't enjoy the journey, like we destroy the journey, right? Like we get so fixated on I need to be this, I need to be that better dad, I need to be that better runner, I need to be that better brother, or I need to be better at work or something like that. But yet uh, we destroy that journey because sometimes that's going to take patience. And when the results don't match our expectation, we feel defeated. Even, guess what? If we're growing, right? So we are we're defeating ourselves because we're setting that unrealistic expectations. And with that being said, goals do matter, but goals should not choke the joy out of our process, right? It should not choke out wanting to be a better father. It should not choke out wanting to be better in your occupation. It shouldn't choke out the process of starting the new business or whatever it is that you have for your life. And number three, that follows up with that is we're not being patient or forgiving with our failures, right? We're going to fail. We're going to just not hit the mark sometimes. And one thing I tell myself is failure is my teacher, right? Like I don't want to continue to repeat it, but it does teach us something. Um, so when things don't go as we hope, guess what? We spiral. So that's another thing. We say maybe I'm not supposed to do this because it didn't work out the way I expected to. If I were more consistent, if I were better at that goal, if I would have just not fallen off the hamster wheel, I wouldn't have failed. And that's not really true in life, right? It's those kind of self-criticism things that we say to ourselves that kills the momentum of us being consistent. And that's kind of what the enemy wants to do, right? He wants to convince us to quit when consistency really just requires prayer, patience. And, one example I can say in my life is when I started my health journey like 6 years ago, right? You know, every day I just started off by putting my tennis shoes on and getting up and walking, right? That's all I did. I couldn't go out and run. It was a really big struggle for me. So every day I just continued to get up and put those shoes on and I continued to walk. I was walking a block and then, I would get past a block. It was just those small, consistent actions. I started to see momentum pick up in my life, right? So that's going to lead me into our next section is what builds consistency in our life. Just like there are things that break our consistency, there are also habits that strengthen it, right? And I think those are the things that, like God wants us to focus on, right? It's not that we don't see our failures. It doesn't say that we're not, you know, going to not be on our vision some days. But the biggest thing is, I believe God really wants us to shift on what builds it, right? Because if we're always looking at those self-criticizing skills, then we're just going to continue to be inconsistent, right? And that's where the enemy wants us because, God does have purposes and plans for us. So, like I said, just like there are things that break our consistency, there are also habits that strengthen it. The three things that changed how I show up in life, right? The things that God has impressed on my heart to help me start that journey of consistency is to get on a schedule, right? Like I've never really thought about that until I really, God spoke to my heart, and that is getting on a bedtime schedule, right? It sounds crazy, but, a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep is really great. Like staying on that consistent pattern of going to bed at the same time at night and getting up. And also making the bed when you get up, right? That's a small thing, but over time, it's like putting the shoes on, right? It's a consistent thing that you're doing. It's a small win, but it works. So if you can make your bed and you can get those shoes on in the morning and you can make those walks, right? Those are small wins, and those small momentum wins start showing up in your life and create consistency. And also, research shows that consistent sleep patterns and small routine habits train your brain for discipline, right? It's like a reward system. It's like, boom, that's good. So you just start to find out when you do these small wins, you look back, it becomes like muscle memory. You're not even thinking about making the bed in the morning. You're not even thinking about, putting the shoes on because this is something that you've been consistent with and that has been ingrained into you, right? So, with that being said, when you do one thing consistently, even the small, you're proving to yourself, I can follow through, right? You're telling yourself, I can follow through, and that builds strength. And when that little self-doubt comes up, that you're not being consistent, you can look back and say, no, I make my bed every day. I put my shoes on and I go for a walk. These are the things that I am consistent with and I have been consistent with for X amount of time. And that's how you combat that negative criticism in your life. And honestly, I'm gonna be really honest with you. I don't always like making my bed, right? Let's be honest. Being consistent is not always fun, but doing it trains me to do the things I don't like anyways, right? And I think, whew, that's a big one for me. Doing the things you don't like to do anyways, right? Which kind of goes into discipline. Number two, just as following up as I was talking, is creating the small wins, right? Small wins build big momentum. That can be walk on your lunch break at work, right? Lace up every morning, put those shoes on, go for a run. I love praying first thing in the morning, right? That is a consistent thing. That is a small win for me. Here's another one that works for me. Drink a glass of water when you wake up, right? It's that small little win. Read one verse before you go to bed one night. Call a friend. Take one intentional breath. These aren't just tasks, right? These aren't just check, check, check. These are signals to your brain. I show up for myself. I'm doing these things and I'm making these small wins for me. And it's showing me that I can be consistent. Small wins stack and stack wins become consistency. So just remember that small wins stack and stacked wins become consistency. All right. Number three, don't let emotions dictate the outcome. You won't always feel motivated. Some days you'll be tired, discouraged, or off. Feelings are real, but they're not facts, right? It's okay to have them, right? Like I always tell myself, it's okay to have those feelings, but they're not always facts. I had a good friend tell me one time, feelings and emotions are like clouds in the sky. Like they're there for 1 minute and then they're gone. If you wait to feel ready, you'll never build consistency. Some of the most meaningful progress I've made came on days I didn't feel like showing up, but I did anyways, right? It's waking up on that morning where it's sleeting outside, it's 17 degrees, and it's like, I don't want to go for a run. I don't really feel, I want to stay in the bed and stay warm, but I put those shoes on and I laced up and I went and did it anyways. And that really spoke heavily into my life. So, final thoughts. So if you're listening right now and feeling stuck, hear me. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about commitment. It's about getting back up when you've fallen down, right? It's getting back up. It's about showing up again and again for life you were meant to live, right? I know I'm meant to do this. I know this vision is what God's put in my heart. I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to slip sometimes. I know I'm going to get off the path, but I'm going to get back up. I'm going to keep showing up. You don't need to be perfect to grow. You just need to keep going, right? Keep one foot in front of the other. Thank you for being here with me today. If this episode has encouraged you, share it with someone who's struggling to stay consistent. And remember, the journey may be long, but every step matters. Until next time, keep climbing, keep growing, one more hill, one day at a time.